mystery unravels. Can't hide the truth.
Chorus? Shake and stir!
It all adds up. Things are made of. Seek within. Time to go clean.
You poor master. Think you can bully me? Here now, 3 animal test 63 away. For the everlasting forest.
Things are made of. Can't hide the truth.
As you can see, I did in fact get Nefer. And having played with her for a while, both in Abyss and the Overworld, I'm actually quite happy to proclaim that she's actually quite a lot of fun. It turns out that her gameplay is essentially melee Tignari. So if you enjoy Tignari's super fast bursts of DPS type playstyle, you may actually find yourself quite enjoying Nefer. We're here with Nefer in Nordcry near the Unicorn boss. Now, like I mentioned in the previous video, it was the 3 charges of her special attack that I need to remember in order to avoid her feeling clunky. But I also came across something interesting that came from, of all places, the Xionyx Twitch chat, which actually makes her feel even easier and smoother to play. Especially if you hold your click, and you can do that while you're doing your dash cancels and all that good stuff. Like, I'm not letting go of my click while I'm doing that. That does in fact make her actually a lot easier to play, a lot smoother to play, and so her DPS rotation is in fact best described as skill into 3 charge attacks, into her ult, into skill, into her 3 charge attacks. Don't release your click while you're doing all of that, because when your skills or your ult resolves, or after your dashes have resolved, you will automatically start trying to do your charge attack so long as you have some verdant dew around. So that's the first thing I wanted to spread awareness of. The other thing I want to talk about today with Nefer is, of course, what her best team is, at least for me. Before I do that, let me remind you all that 92% of y'all haven't subscribed yet, so if you can get around to liking the video and subscribing to the channel, your support will of course help me a lot. Or at the very least, help me feel better about myself. We still have the last part of the Archon quest to play through, so I don't know when I'll do that yet, but if you ring that bell icon, you can be notified of the latest content on the channel. And of course, if you're watching this on your phone, you may find a hype button down below. Hitting that will actually help with the algorithm boosting this video, so I'd like to thank everyone who has in fact been taking the time out of their day to do that. So you may have heard that Nefer's current best team is probably her Hypercarry team with Lauma, Sucrose, and Constellated Aino. The idea being that Aino is super useful in this team provided you're not getting circularly impacted, because her constellations, namely her C1 and C6, boost Nefer's DPS considerably. Thing is, surprise surprise, I don't have Constellated Aino, and I would hazard a guess that anyone who isn't also a Flins player doesn't either. So is this Nefer's strongest team? Perhaps it is. Alternatively, you could play the Nefer trial team with C6 Diona instead of Sucrose. You will get some interruption resistance and some healing as well. But instead, what I want to show you all today is Lunar Spread Nefer with the illustrious in the extreme, Her Royal Highness, the Queen of Sass, Miko, the Wise and Beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the strongest Nefer team that I can make at the present moment. What we are leveraging here today is still pretty strong, but not as strong Lunar Bloom DPS, but in favor of a lot more off-field DPS from Lauma's skill, which does surprisingly okay damage, currently C4 going to C5 Miko, and of course the Lady Furina. One thing that's hilarious about this team is that thanks to there being double Dendro, it's actually impossible for Furina's Hydro app to break the Dendro Aura, which basically means that Miko is always getting an Aggravate with every 3 turret hits. On top of that, Nefer's ult can do a spread reaction, which does result in surprisingly decent damage. See, Nefer's ult dual scales off attack and EM and does Dendro damage, not Lunar Bloom damage. So with Nefer builds typically being EM crit, her ult in this team can actually take advantage of things like the Fanfare generation in order to do upwards of 100k hits. On top of that, as far as I understand, the seeds of deceit that you get, the fails of falsehood that you end up with, they actually give her ult some damage percent as well, so you might as well take advantage of all of that by doing a spread reaction with that ult. So how does this team compare to some other team comps that I can currently make with Nefer? The TheoryCrafters reckon that Nefer is balanced around being a hypercarry, like around the Skirk Varessa level, so it would make more sense that putting together a team designed around exclusively buffing Nefer whilst providing that Hydro app for her Vertidu generation would in fact be the best. But here's 4 different Nefer teams in comparison. We've got 2 Hypercarry types and of course 2 Lunar Spread types. And it does seem that the Lunar Spread Nefer is in fact a little bit stronger than Hypercarry Nefer, with the Shinobu variant being the tiniest bit faster than the Miko run, and I'm talking about like frames faster. However, I maintain that the Miko run is ultimately stronger than the Shinobu run, because if the Unicorn had survived long enough to start tanking Miko's burst, as there's a lot of damage in that burst, well then suddenly the Miko run should be doing a fair bit more DPS. The Shinobu run having only Shinobu's electro damage wasn't really going to be doing all that much. So for the time being, when possible, I will continue to play Lunar Spread Nefer, a team that closely resembles my Quick Bloom Tignari team. In this team with my C1 Lauma, I have found myself reverting back to using sack frags on her, and I think that's the key difference between me and most Lauma players out there. If your Lauma isn't C1, then yeah, you should probably stick to Spindaloo, but since it requires a use of her skill or her ult to allow Lunar Bloom reactions to start healing the on-fielder, I'd rather stick with sack frags so that I can let the team heal up a bit during the setup and then once again refresh her skill so that Lauma can take full advantage of all of the advantages of using Lauma's skill. Popping Miko's ult is reserved for the part of Nefer's on-field duration where she'd pop her ult as a way of stalling for more inverted do. In this case, of course, Miko can stall even harder for more inverted do and then swap back to Nefer to go ham. And for Nefer, I think I'll stick with Widsith, although now that Spindaloo isn't being used by Lauma, it is a bit tempting to have it on Nefer. In fact, in the comparison that I showed previously, I had Nefer on Spindaloo just so that we don't get confusing results from the Widsith RNG. But it does seem like the damage I'm getting out of Widsith Nefer is actually similar to Spindaloo Nefer until I get that fat EM buff, in which case, of course, her damage goes way out of hand for those 10 seconds. So that is the strongest Nefer team I can make so far. Although, now that I think about it, there might be another Nefer team that could potentially be stronger, something a little cursed that would really cause players of a certain character to get pretty mad at it because it pretty much ruins their kit in favor of hyper buffing Nefer herself. Much like how EM Raiden is heresy of the highest order, this team I'm now thinking about might be considered foul, wrong, and a complete waste of one of the more interesting characters in the game. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. What's your favorite Nefer team? Let me know in the comments. I'm feeling rather certain that Columbina's release will usher in, of course, a new Nefer team, and that will end up being significantly stronger than what we have available. The big question is whether or not Lunar Spread will still remain as my personal favorite, or whether I'm end up going all in on Hypercarry Nefer. Which one will I land on? We'll just have to see. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin Impact action, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Enough. Right, this is my turn.
With one heart,
Now that's not right.
with the fall of darkness,
Nothing lasts
destruction shall
forever.
rise.